Mr. Womack.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Chairman, welcome. You're a breath of fresh air. I got to say that. In my words, in my strong opinion, in the last administration was more agenda-driven. And in listening to your testimony this morning, and then in our private conversation, you seem to have the view that your job is like that of an umpire, of a referee, to make sure that you are holding the people and the institutions that are subject to your purview accountable. And again, my words, certainly not yours. And so it's from that standpoint that I think you're on the right course of getting the FTC back to the nuts and bolts, the blocking and tackling, if you will, of what the commission was set up for. I do have a question about budget, though. When we had our conversation, and these are appropriators up here, so it's our job to fund the discretionary side of government, and yours is part of that. We don't have clarity right now, and we need clarity. My assumption is, and I want to be clear that it's just an assumption, that there will be many agencies that will be facing some budget adjustments, some cuts, if you will. And where is the FTC right now with regard to the prospect of having to settle for less and be able to continue to function as a reputable institution within the government?
The agency that I inherited, even at current funding levels, was in a very difficult position. The previous administration had hired employees at levels far beyond what we could afford.
Would you call it bloated?
It was bloated. There was like a 2-year hiring spree that got us to levels that we couldn't sustain. And so it was important to me, coming in as chairman, to sort of make the difficult decisions necessary to restore fiscal health to the agency. And so as the president has, consistent with what he ran on in the 2024 election, oriented the government towards efficiency and being no larger than necessary to carry out its critical missions for the American people, we were already well underway on getting the agency down to a size consistent with what this body had appropriated us. And so we were sort of ready to go on that front, consistent with the president's agenda as well. We've been conducting a thorough review of our contracting. We've already reduced contract spend for this fiscal year by more than $6 million. So we are positioned. We also, as I discussed earlier, are undertaking steps that we are very optimistic about that will, over the course of the next several years, shrink the amount of money we have to pay outside vendors to house our data in some of our big and important investigations and litigations. So we are well on our way to being prepared for whatever budget this committee decides to appropriate for the FTC.
You know, that runs counter to what a lot of agency heads would suggest. They need more money. They need more people. They need more resources. It sounds to me like that you feel like you can, the FTC can do its job.
And that's a testament to the FTC staff. I would put the FTC staff up against the staff of any agency, civilian or federal, in the federal government. And whatever this committee decides to appropriate to the commission, American consumers will be protected by our staff.
Good. In the president's executive order, agency heads, in consultation with the FTC chair and the U.S. Attorney General, complete a review of all agency regulations under their rulemaking authority and determine which rules create anti-competitive barriers. How do you plan to execute antitrust enforcement in recognition of this particular executive order?
President Trump has put out a bunch of amazing executive orders. I'm not sure I'm as excited about any of them as I am on this one. So when we talk about competition in America, we generally think about monopolies and consolidation and price fixing, which is appropriate. But one of the biggest obstacles to competition, particularly to small and medium-sized businesses, is regulation. And you know, I worked on the Hill. I've seen it in action. I've worked in state government. I've seen it in action. Big businesses will often come into the government and propose regulations that they can comply with quite easily, but that make it very difficult for competitors to rise and challenge them. And the president's executive order tells us, look through the entire code of federal regulations, find regulations that are barriers to entry, that raise rivals' costs, and get them out of there. So we put out an RFI to the public. We said, if you, especially small businesses, if you are aware of regulations that benefit your competitors but make it harder for you to compete, tell us. We will review them. We will make recommendations to the president. We also sent letters to every agency head in the federal government asking them to do the same thing. We will have economists and lawyers at both the Department of Justice and the FTC reviewing these regulations as they are identified to us, and I'm very excited when we eventually send the list to OMB and the president on our recommendations for descoping and deletion.
Yeah, one final comment, because I may not be around if we have a second round of questions, and I want to be able to say this in regard to what you just discussed, and that is I'm sure hopeful that among those things that are considered in this context is Section 1071 of the Dodd-Frank Act, because that is, in Ms. Gluskamp-Perez and I both agree that this small business side of the equation is where the jobs are created and where we need to be creating emphasis as far as the FTC goes. But that's one that is very punitive to to our banking community. So I applaud you for the work that you're doing. Keep it up, and we look forward to getting your budget.